Hello there, I'm Leo Warder for Kit Guru, and this laptop is the MSI GS40. To give it its full name, the GS40 6QE Phantom. Let's just start that Thief benchmark running so you can see the loveliness of the graphics. And let's just turn it like so. And there we go, we're off. Now this is actually a preview of the GS40 because what I have here is not the final example. And the smart move is for you to head off to Kit Guru and read our recent review of the GS60, which is the slightly bigger brother of this laptop. GS60 is a 15.6-inch 4K panelled affair running on Core i7 Skylake, and it has GTX 970M graphics. This basically is the same laptop, except it's a 14-inch chassis and it has a full HD 1080p panel rather than 4K. Other than that, it's basically the same fella. It's got the same GTX 970M graphics, and the reason that the GS60 review is completely pertinent is that was tested in games at full HD because you simply cannot run a GTX 970M with a 4K panel. It just can't push the pixels, and that's finished. No, it hasn't. It's still chugging along. Looking lovely though. And so benchmark figures for this laptop and for the GS60 are basically the same. Now the thing is, I was told I mustn't benchmark this GS40, so naturally I haven't done that because that'd be naughty. And the reason is because the processor in this laptop is not the final example. The processor in this is a Core i7 6820HQ, which runs at 2.7 gigahertz. The retail version is going to run a Core i7 6700HQ, which is 100 megahertz slower. In the great scheme of things, the same blooming processor, but you know, I've been told not to do it, so I won't.
Somebody calls you, you answer quite slowly. A girl with kaleidoscope
Shut that down. I have to say that one thing about this chassis that actually has caused me some annoyance is that the cooling, it gets a bit rorty. Now, I'm not particularly surprised about that because a thin chassis, and it's only 21mm, 21.8mm thick at the thin at the thickest point, and the GS60 was 20 odd mil. So basically, very, very thin chassis. But of course, this has less of everything to pack all the hardware in. Keeping a decent processor and decent graphics cool in a chassis this thin is hard work. Generally speaking, you have to spin up the fan. As I've been sitting there running, hot air has been streaming out of these vents. Now, this is a preview, and I've been explicitly told that the cooling system that is on this sample is not the finished work. I don't know how it's going to differ, so I can draw no conclusions. I'm sitting here thinking it's a bit toasty, a bit noisy, but I am certain it's going to change in some respect. I don't know how much it's going to change. One other thing is the keyboard here. It has red lighting on the SteelSeries keyboard. The GS60 had full RGB, as I understand it. It certainly had a variety, a choice of colours. This, it's red, nothing else. So that's a bit of a shame. We like RGB, we like a choice of colours, but anyway, red, it looks very pretty, and obviously red is an MSI colour. Right, you can see the screen there. It's worth pointing out that Windows 10, the default settings actually, it scaled the desktop and all the icons and such like, it scaled them to 150%, and they look really good. The thing is, 14 inches for full HD, that's tight. It means everything's very small. Those are small icons. It's all very small. You can read the games, but you have to go bit 150%, no problem at all. Everything's, but it does then mean that you're not really running at that point full HD, or running significantly less than full HD actually. And it means that most pages you actually have to scroll up and down. Web pages and such like, you find yourself moving up and down quite a lot to see the bottom of the page. So I like the small chassis, the thinness, the lightness, the 1.6 kiloness. The GS60 was 2 kilos. This is 1.6, very, very light, very thin, very cute, really feels nice. But Full HD, 14-inch, borderline. On the other hand, Windows 10 does handle scaling very well indeed, but if you whack up the scaling, it'll look right, but then suddenly you really have got a small window on a bigger screen. Anyway, there we go. Power brick. As far as I can see, it's the same power brick as the GS60, which is 150 odd watt, which is quite big actually for a thing of this size. Let's just remove that, and let's just push and hold the power button to kill it, and turn it off, and shut it down. Now, I've been saying it's the same as the GS60, except it's a bit smaller. That is not strictly true. All the major aesthetic aspects, yes, absolutely. The styling, I forget what the name is for the cutesy finish they put on it, but it does look very much like the slightly smaller version of the GS60. But the ports and connectors are not the same. One of the very few complaints that we actually had about the GS60 was no USB on the right hand side. Well, here we go. There's a regular USB and there's a Type-C side by side. You want to plug a mouse in there, no problem. You've also got HDMI there. If we go to this side, you've got your headset jacks, you've got a card reader, you've got another USB 3, you've got the power thing, and you've got your network connection. On the back, we've got mini DisplayPort. So the layout of the ports is not the same as the GS60, which really surprises me because I would assume they'd take the GS60 and just shrink it a bit. But that's why I'm not designing laptops for a living, isn't it? I am told that the bottom of the laptop is actually going to change. Perhaps that's as part and parcel of the cooling. So it's a bottom panel, but you're to draw absolutely no conclusions from that. And then inside the laptop, and we have the M.2 SSD, we have your hard drive, we have battery, we have the twin coolers, and you can see the heat pipes going to the hardware. We have the DDR4. That's the card reader. One curiosity, apart from if you compare photos of this with photos of the GS60, you'll see the layout is not actually identical. I mean, I've mentioned already, for example, different connector there, which doesn't appear on the 60. But the layout of the components is not exactly the same, which again, bit of a surprise. One thing I also noted was this battery is rated at 8,060 milliamp hours, 61.25 watt hours. The GS60, the battery, 4,150 milliamp hours, so half. Properly surprised about that. Now, I did do a sort of battery rundown test, just looping PC Mark just to see what happened, and it went to 2 hours 11. You can double that for real world because it's just constantly hammering and working it hard. So that's going to give you 4 to 5 hours in the real world, which is perfectly okay. The idea of gaming this laptop until the battery dies, it's going to die quite quickly. It's just obviously so. But as we know, to get best performance from a gaming laptop, you need mains power anyway. So that's almost a detail. But the layout, the features, the performance, the skylateness, everything about this laptop is exactly the same as the GS60 in that respect, which is it's blooming lovely. Pricing, I don't know how much this is going to be. I'm going to take a punt here, and this is picking figures out of the air. If the GS60 is in the territory of £1,400, this cannot be a lot less. It hasn't got a 4K panel. On the other hand, they've got to pack the hardware into a smaller space. I'm going to take a figure, completely a guess, and I'm going to say £1,250. I'm hoping that's what it's going to go for, in which case, wow, what a piece of hardware. If it's a lot more than £1,250, if it's the same as its bigger GS60 brother, then that'll be a bit peculiar. But it's quite peculiar seeing all the red lights because, of course, it's still on. It's just that I've sort of opened it up. But in terms of form, fit and function, it's a little bit of a shame that I've only got a red keyboard lighting. But the screen, the IPS panel, Full HD is absolutely lovely. Clearly going bigger than Full HD and 14-inch would be nonsensical. And going 40, it's tight. I mean, the scaling of the display, you are going to drive yourself slightly bats, I think, if you're using this Full HD without moving the scaling slider. But for gaming, it looks an absolute dream. Colours, brightness, angle of viewing angle and all the rest of it is great. Keyboard is perfectly all right. Touchpad, mouse, that all works. The chassis, nice. I love that feeling. So there we go. That's a very quick preview of the GS40. Technically, I shouldn't be benchmarking it because the processor is 100 megahertz out. If you want figures, look at the GS60. It's the same. Ignore the 4K. It's full HD. Other than that, it's the same. It's just smaller, cuter. It's a nice piece of work. I like that a great deal. So this is Leo Walder for Kit Guru, and this is our preview of the MSI GS40 Phantom.